Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Husky Hockey Podcast, your number one reason to remind you that even though the nets might be off the moorings there at the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center, we're not off the moorings here at the Huskies Hockey Podcast. We are the most hardcore, optimistic, level-headed fans that you'll see, especially as we roll into the playoffs. Nothing but good vibes and good thoughts from here on out. What do you think, Andrew?
Chugging the Kool-Aid, baby.
That's something like that. Huskies lose on Friday 4-3 and overtime win 4-3. Identical 4-3 scores, which I guess I just realized before. And it was an interesting series. And after Friday's game and all of the results and everything kind of shook out, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that the Duluth was going to be back again the next weekend. And, you talk about how much I love the 03-04 season. We ended that with 4 straight losses to Minnesota. And here we were able to at least buck that a little bit. So I guess that's a little bit of a plus. But so just kind of Andrew, what were some of your thoughts here about the games, about the weekend as a whole, and just about just kind of the team in general?
Yeah, it was like you said, an interesting weekend. I do, in retrospect, I think I enjoyed this weekend more after the fact rather than in the moment.
Right.
Like that Saturday game in particular, I thought, that was a pretty good game. Like my dad watched it, not being a Husky fan, but he watched it. He goes, "Well, Huskies look pretty good." And I'm like, "Really? I don't think they really did." But he's like, "I watched it from the second period on." I'm like, "Aha! You didn't see that first period there," which is a big factor,
big key
in analyzing that game. But I mean, I go back to the North Dakota series after that series on the podcast. I was kind of resigned to the fact I don't really think this team is a championship team, and I'm just trying to enjoy the end of the season. If the Huskies can surprise me, great. But I'm kind of not really angry. I'm not really frustrated. I'm just I'm just curious as to how this season is going to end. This has been a very interesting arc of a year. Lots of twists and turns and surprises. I mentioned we'll be touching on our season preview podcast, kind of tying the bow on that.
God, no,
when
don't.
When I listened to it, just hearing kind of
you didn't actually listen to it, did you? Did you listen?
Not the whole thing, but a good chunk of it. And it was interesting just to hear what we had coming in, what we were thinking coming into the season, the question marks for the Huskies entering the year, and to know kind of how they've played out, at least through the regular season. It's interesting to return to those ideas. Injuries on the back end have been a big factor here, and I'm not sure when they announced that Peart and Treble were not going to be available, because it was interesting after the Omaha series, which both of them were injured in that Saturday game. It sounded like Larson didn't think those were necessarily serious injuries, but they've lost one weekend so far.
I feel like that's just Larson in general. I think he undersells injuries quite a bit. I mean, I think he was very week to week on Meyer, and he was out for quite a while. So I think that maybe he's just optimistic. So I don't know.
They were very quick about the Anhorn injury. I mean, very like.
I think when surgery is involved, they're kind of like, he's not going to come back.
That's true. Great. Just shout out to Dylan Anhorn. He's becoming like folk hero status to me with his. I don't know if you watched any of that. senior day, senior night festivities.
Is he like the Paul Bunyan of Husky hockey?
Kind of. Well, he's got, I mean, that mullet that he is rocking right now. He's got, I mean, we're coming up to state hockey tournaments weekend here, so the salad that Anhorn is rocking, and they did the little shotgun thing with the crutch. God, it is a shame that we're not going to be able to see how that would have played out with him not getting that fluke injury. But now you add Peart and Trable on top of it. Hey, we have been thoroughly unimpressed at large parts of the season with Peart in particular. But I mean, his presence and Trable's were really felt this weekend. I thought, thrusting Wiley and Zemer into pretty much regular action, only playing with 6 defensemen, and Wiley getting power play time. There, it just exposed some of the weaknesses. I'm not down too much on Wiley. Zemer, I am more so, and I don't think he had a great weekend. But
I think he had a rough weekend. I thought Wiley was very good up until a few really bad plays that cost.
Like I thought he was, I thought he was fine cycling the puck on the power play. Like I think that'll be something that he improves on and sort of grows into. But yeah, a couple of those bad turnovers, basically set up that third goal for Duluth on Friday with, a whiffing of a pretty simple, pass right off of draw, and then he sort of takes 2 whacks at it, doesn't make contact with the puck, and
I really hope that's just a learning opportunity for him. So
all right, and he wouldn't be counted on so much if not for these latest 2 injuries. And so that's obviously a big factor here.
And 2 years, that's gonna loom big. I mean, that's gonna be key moments in playoff opportunity and playoff atmosphere. That's really gonna help him in the long run. Will it help us this year? Who knows?
Perhaps, I mean, look at Castor. Castor's probably a better goalie this year because of that experience. It did not go well last year. This, thrust into emergency action in the playoffs, but we're probably better off long term because he had that experience. And so, that's important too. But it's just, and talking and speaking about the goaltenders, I mean, they have regressed, which was to be expected. Bassie in particular was hovering north of .930 save percentage for basically the first half of the year. Castor not so far behind him. Now it's actually Castor having a slight edge on both stats, the GAA and save percentage. And they're both, I think, Castor at .915, Bassie at .913, which I just did. I can't do the average of save percentage, but the median of the save percentage, like out of 66 goalies, like 33 was, I think, Magnus Krona, I think. And that was like 9.
Well, 9 see, I'm telling you, he's average. Yeah. So,
and so it's, these guys are average, but getting back to like our season preview, if you would have told us that goaltending was going to be average, NCAA average, I think we would have been thrilled at that. And I think that is a big key to explaining why the Huskies are in the position they are in, which is essentially guaranteed an NCAA tournament berth no matter what they do here this weekend. They did build themselves quite an amount of equity in that first half, or at least the Anhorn section of the season, that they've gone now 1 regulation win in 10 games, and they're still pretty golden for the NCAA. So I was not thrilled. We'll go through each kind of game here individually or more in depth, but on the whole, I was really not impressed. I was not blown away by the Huskies, although obviously coming back on Saturday leaves you with end on a high note, and able to come back from a 3-0 deficit. After it was 3-0 Duluth, I'm thinking this might get ugly. Similar like that Omaha game last weekend. And touching again about last week when I said this team has been looking noticeably worse on Saturdays. Well, they were able to find it. And those last 2 periods plus overtime, I thought they really dominated Duluth in that section of the action. So hopefully that will launch you into this playoff series. But it's my head does not. My heart's with the Huskies here, but my head is saying I think Duluth's going to win this playoff series. I just being honest.
Really?
They have that postseason mojo. They seem to have St. Cloud's number this year. Just the one overtime win in 4 chances for the Huskies. On paper, I think that the Huskies are the better team, the more skilled team. But especially if we're not going to be with Treyball and Peart, I'm not sure if that bodes super well for the Huskies. But again, I'm at the point of the season that I'm just sitting back and I'm waiting to be surprised.
Just K Syrah.
Right, man. It's like I said, it's my version of Zen. I've accepted that. I don't really think this team is built for the long haul this season. But if they get the chip chair and chance, which they seemingly have in the NCAAs, anything can happen. And I think that there is the talent to do it. Just how healthy are you going to be, and who do you draw? That's going to be obviously important. All those intangibles that we won't know for sure what the deal is until Selection Sunday, but let's just play as well as you can and have fun out there. And I think I think this team could use a little bit of loose, just don't take it so seriously. Just have fun. And I think you should be able to beat this team, but I just have a bad hunch about it. So,
well, the Huskies in the NCAA tournament have fared a lot better when their back's against the wall and when everybody has counted them out. So maybe this is just another instance of people counting us out, and we're going to go on a run. I'm actually a little bit more optimistic after this series because I just think there was a lot of fluky play that Duluth was able to capitalize on, and I think that just kind of was the difference. And we'll kind of go into that here. The big thing that my takeaway is we got to start better. I mean, being outscored 5-rip in the first period on the weekend, and not only that, but 2 goals. First period, I think there was one within 30 seconds left to go in the period, and then Isaac Howard's goal was a minute and change. I mean, maybe closer to 2 minutes, but I mean, it was like you got to learn to close out those games and close out those periods. But let's start with Friday. Nets coming off left and right, which is incredibly frustrating to watch. But again, kind of the bane of the Huskies is that these middle to deep role players that kind of ended up killing them. Quinn Olson, who had 5 goals going into this weekend, pops in 2. One was a really good backdoor play, but Brand, who I think had a very tough weekend, and I don't really understand, between Brand and Salquist, I don't know what Larson loves about that. I thought Brand had just a bad weekend. He didn't clear the puck on the power play. Then Minnesota Duluth was able to enter the zone, cycle it around. I thought he got suckered up a little too high. Cronulla also kind of had a stick on the wrong side and let that pass through. It was like a runway. It was a beautiful pass by Dominic James, but you can't let that pass go through on the back door. It's an easy tap in goal. And then just a bad turnover, and then Quinn Olson near the end of that second period or end of the first period kind of comes in, and that's the one where Castor, I think just Castor has to make that save there. And I felt like Castor and Bassie both had goals that were like, come on, like you got to make a save. But even when they're kind of going through that rush, it's like you felt that one coming. It was like, oh, you're going to end like this, aren't you? This is going to go in, and sure enough, pops it in down 2. And I was like, I wasn't feeling like this was going to turn around because again, that Saturday game against Omaha was still fresh in my mind.
Yeah, I with you there, and seeing that second period on Friday was nice.
Just a weird period.
Yeah, it was.
Spellacy gets a 5-minute major.
Yeah.
Kupka really just takes it over. Who Spellacy, I thought, had actually overall a really good weekend, except for the major, which I know a lot of people on Twitter were really debating the legitimacy of it between the camera angles and whatnot. So, but yeah, Kupka just rips too. They had the 5-minute, who I thought we had an excellent 5-minute kill there. So it was just kind of
kill essentially, because there was a Duluth penalty in between.
Yep. Howard got a holding penalty in there too.
And that first Kupka goal was, bad clearing attempt for Duluth that Kupka intercepts and snipes. Type of goal that Duluth, so it's opportunistic type of goal that they seem to trademark themselves on. So it's nice to kind of give them a little bit of their own medicine there, and then tying it up with their power play. The Huskies power play did struggle this weekend, and I think part of that is attributed to the fact that you're running guys out there like Wiley, who, I mean, he's had power play experience earlier this year. I know in Wisconsin, he was involved in a power play goal, but he hasn't even seen much regular ice time period over the last couple of months. And now you're thrusting him onto power play units. Tough assignment for him. We saw on Saturday, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but the first power play unit was just a shot. It was their first. They got the power play within a minute or two of the game on Saturday, and it was Bushy and Lutke on the back end with Rosborough, Acoin, and Spellacy. Hey, we've been on here saying change it up here.
This is not exactly what we had in mind.
Yeah, I mean, we've said Lutke on the point, and we've said Spellacy. If you want a grease pan guy, sure. Those other three names, you could have pulled those out of a hat. And yet Miller on that power play, Miller gets like 15 seconds at the tail end, creates a scoring chance, best scoring chance of the power play, and then he doesn't get any power play time at all for the rest of the game. So I thought their power play all weekend struggled. Was it 1 for 6 on Friday? 1 for 5. So
1 for 5 each,
both nights. And with Duluth able to score power play one out of 2 on Friday, and then 1 out of 4, including a major penalty in there. Penalty kill was better on Saturday, but special teams did loom large here. It seems like if you clean up the PK, then it's the power play that's letting you down, and vice versa. Seems like it's been that way this last month or 6 weeks of struggle for the Huskies. So that was frustrating, but yeah, it just I just didn't think that the defense was very tight, and again, we can chalk that up to inexperience and the injury factor. But as you said, goaltending wasn't what it's at its peak either night. I thought a couple of goals, you're just goalies kind of bite a little too early and beating them on these high shots. So it was, frustrating game. And the Stay Skull 5 or 6 times knocking the nut off. And again, I don't think that they were purposeful, but at some point, I think he still should have gotten a penalty for it, because you got to learn how to adapt to that. And you saw on Saturday, it wasn't an issue for him. I don't think he knocked it off on Saturday. So I did think that was getting out of hand. And I did think that they should have called a penalty on him, but that sort of just added to the lack of good flow and pace to the game.
Yeah.
And just how it seemingly was not going to be the Huskies' night, even after Kupka ties the game, not feeling terribly confident that they were going to finish the job. And early goal there, that third goal with mentioned the Wiley turnover leads to a goal. And
Now, was that before or after the penalty shot?
That was after.
That was after
was Wiley involved in that as well? Springing that
I don't 100% remember.
I feel like it was a defensive breakdown again in the neutral zone that led to that breakaway. But I might be misremembering too.
I think maybe that was Lukey.
You might be right there.
I think it was Lukey because he tried overskating. Like, he tried to really, like, force the issue while we had an extra attack. Like, pass the puck, buddy. You don't try to skate through everyone. And I think that's when he created the turnover. But Castor stood tall on that penalty shot. But then, just a couple minutes later, Loney comes in. And he's got, a breakaway, and Castor decides to just throw his stick out there. Loney, I mean, he makes a heck of a play to end up going top corner. I think the net was off. He could have reviewed that if you knocked the net off too before it crossed, but they didn't. But at that, I was just like, again, that's a guy who scored twice all year. So, and he scored one other goal, and and then Cole Spicer a little bit later in the period, he ends up scoring. It's like, who are these guys? Have Steves beat me. That's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, other than Steves and James, they don't really have much.
Yeah.
I mean, Olsen's having a decent year for them, 22 points, but he's their third leading scorer. So it's not whoever you say, it's other than Steves is going to be like, only his 7th goal of the year or whatever it is. Like, we're not talking about, 4 lines deep of 40-point scorers here. I don't really care who beats you. It's the fact that they beat you is what's troubling, and how it seems to always happen against this team, which is frustrating.
Huskies did make it interesting there in the end with Salquist getting popping in a goal. I know I dragged him just about 3 minutes ago, but he was out there to win a faceoff, open net, popped it in, awesome. And then we actually had a couple of chances there at the end, just with 20 some seconds left, but no dice, which wasn't really a surprise, but I actually came away from that third period thinking, actually pretty good. I know there was a lot of pessimism on Huskies Twitter, but overall I was like, they had 2 chances to score in the third, and they capitalized them on. Well, they had 3 chances with the penalty shot, but they capitalized on them, and I actually felt kind of good going into Saturday's game. Probably a lot more optimistic than a lot of other Huskies fans were.
Yeah, I can't say I was super optimistic about it. It's just that it's a lot of the same issues, but they're almost more glaring because of the extra injury factor here. And so and again, so the
and you wonder, I just thought about this now, is that all season Larson has always dressed 7 defensemen. Now you're thrust into a spot where this weekend it was 6 defensemen. Maybe these defensemen just don't have the legs for it. Where they're not used to the extra time. Now that doesn't really bode well, because I guess as the games went on, the Huskies did get better both games. So I guess that, never mind. I'll just edit that last part out.
I'm not sure about legs necessarily, but just the amount of responsibilities put on them. Like I said, this is a season where Wiley, I mean, how many games has he played this year? 20? And probably not even that. Just checking on the fly here. 23 games. So, I mean, 2/3 of the games he's played in, but I'm sure he's set season highs and ergo career highs for ice time in a game this weekend. Bet you that, because when he was dressing, it was more as the 7th guy.
Mm-hmm.
Early in the season, it was kind of like him or Reiners would kind of flip-flop who's sitting and who's the 7th D guy. Well, now they're both in the lineup and both playing important minutes. Penalty kill for Reiners, power play for Wiley. So maybe it's just the new the new experience of having so much responsibility, and that's hopefully going to be beneficial for the long run, as you said, but just hard to expect too much when it is sort of all of a sudden, here we go, kid. Help win some games against a conference rival, and heading into a postseason conference tournament and then the NCAA's. Like it's a tough task, I think. So yeah, seeing the weekend as a whole, I think they held up as good as you can imagine. There was definitely some leaky areas, but I think we can see that there is some skill there and some potential. So trying to stay positive here. And so that Saturday game, again, I know this is your favorite. I'm going to be quoting, or at least not accurate, not precisely quoting, citing a coach interview. But the pregame interview with Larson on Saturday, I mean, he's like, I loved how this team played on Friday, and looking back at the video, I thought we played even better than I thought in real time. And sometimes he says some stuff that just makes me scratch my head. I'm like, and it's the stuff with, as you said, Sahlquist and putting Brand with Cranola and Cruikshank, and he started them again on Saturday. So the fourth straight game after the first game that they paired them together, where Cranola has basically gone dormant since that time. After the first game, I'm like, this isn't working. Put someone else on that line. They did put Miettinen back in that line briefly towards the end of the game on Saturday, which, Miettinen was kind of, I was like, I don't mind that because I like that better than Brand there. But at the same time, Miettinen was having a pretty good game. Playing with Ingram. And so, but yeah, it's just these.
That's where I'd like to see someone like Rogers there on that first line. Or
I mean, they had Molinar as the seventh. They probably had a seventh forward instead of seventh defenseman. But I wouldn't see really hardly any of Molinar on the weekend. But yeah, saying that weird power play unit to start the game. I mean, Cruikshank and Kuka, I don't think had hit the ice yet. When that power play started, it's like, why don't you start with those guys? Especially with Kuka sort of being the hot hand with 2 goals on Friday. Sometimes, yeah, I scratch my head at some of these personnel decisions. He knows more about hockey than I have forgotten, to paraphrase a famous quote. Hopefully he knows more than I do, and he knows more about his personnel than I do, certainly. But sometimes it's pretty baffling with some of these decisions. But at the same time, again, we're getting to the point in the season where you kind of have to force the issue, and I wish there was more experimentation. I heard it again with this tongue bath with the announcers about Sahlquist, but God, he just can't look at the box score, the stats too much. He does so much good. And, hey, he was great on the face-off dot on Friday. I think 19 out of 25, something like that. So yeah, and the goal too late. He didn't have a bad game, but we wouldn't hear the sermons about how undervalued he is if he had 20 points. Like, if he had 20 points, we just would point to that, and we wouldn't have to be told or lectured how well he is or how valuable he is. And it's the spotlight is that much more on him because he's getting such prime real estate, prime assignments, power play, penalty kill, extra attacker situations. Like, the spotlight is extra bright if you're thrust into those sort of situations. So yeah, I'm glad that he realized that maybe sparking the Cranola Okabe pairing, putting Miettinen back with them might be worth it. I just feel like it shouldn't have taken 4 games to move Brand off that line. So yeah, just going into that Saturday game after hearing that, I'm just like, again, are we watching the same game? Sometimes it really baffles me. And then after the 3-0 hole, like I said, this is not looking so hot. And credit to the team, they really did find something. And that those last two periods plus overtime. Hey, I hope that's the kind of action we get this coming weekend.
Very much so. So Steve scores, the power play goal, which was pretty much copy and paste his goals from the Minnesota Duluth series.
A little bit high, towards the blue line. He was kind of more down towards the net.
In a matter of what? 5 feet?
Yeah. I'm just saying, it's still that high shot. It was very similar.
So incredibly similar. And then Gelatin scores after a puck is airmailed and bounced back, just kind of right to his stick.
They did one of those in Duluth too. They're great at that. Again, check out those banners they have. That was built on those kind of plays.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to call I think it's. I'm not sure if it's gelatin. But I'm calling him Jello because it looks kind of like gelatin.
Gelatin.
So I'm calling him Jello.
We can call him gelatin for this weekend. I'm okay with that. So Jello makes it to a rip. And then 2 minutes left to go. I think it was Zemer who has the puck in our end, tries to, I don't know if it was trying to shot or just dump it or whatnot, but hits off the defender, and it's just off to the races. And for Isaac Howard, who is the highly touted freshman, who I thought was 16 points as a freshman isn't terrible, I guess. So, but
we'll
he's
get
really
back to that. I think it's fair to say it was a disappointing season for him.
It's. Now, I can understand that.
I want to get back to that. Let's put a pin in that.
Okay.
I don't want to get you too sidetracked, but I do want to expand on that later when we go through our NCHC regular season recap.
He does have 6 points in the last 5 games.
Yes. Yep.
So
I was going to bring that up. He has been better.
He has been. So, but yeah. So, boom, 3-0 after the first. I'm sick of these low energy starts by the Huskies. I'm slumping down in my chair. And then we kind of get that fluky goal from Miettinen that just kind of those Rennick special leakers there that was able to just barely cross the goal line. Up. All right, perfect. Sounds good. So we're maybe we can get something going. My whole goal right there was like, okay, I like to break down games into chunks. So at that point, I'm like, let's make it a 1-goal game by the end of the second. And then sure enough, just a few minutes later, Bienen comes down on a rush on a 2-on-1 and then calls his own number and ends up firing low blocker to beat Stay Skull 3-2. And I'm like, hey, all right, we got something cooking. Miettinen taking the team on his back, and that's the Miettinen that we've been kind of, if we see flashes of, and then it kind of goes away, and we saw flashes of here this game, and then so I was excited, I was optimistic as we were continuing on this game going into the third period.
And so I guess big turning point in the third was the Duluth power play goal that was waved off due to offsides challenge. I'm pretty sure. So they reviewed it. They went to review it. They come out of there and says it's a good goal. The puck fully crossed the line. And then Larson challenges it. I'm almost figuring that they were reviewing it for offsides and then realized halfway through, oh, wait, we can't review offsides unless only through a coach's challenge can we review offsides, because that was a rule change in the offseason. Because there was no doubt that the puck was in the net. I think they were just saving face there. And so they had to do the dog and pony show of going over to Larson, and then he throws the challenge flag, hypothetically, on the ice. And I mean, I didn't see a real clear view of it. I didn't think it was obvious as far as how it seemed like Gino Parrish was making it out to seem. But again, I've never been a fan of offsides reviews for something like that where it's just so close,
so bang, so close.
I don't think it really makes that much of a material difference in the play. But I mean, giant swing there because not only does that goal get waved off, Bushy ends up scoring a shorty on that same power play opportunity for Duluth to tie it up. So you go from 4-2 down 2 goals to tied up in the third period. And I think by that time, Duluth really, I mean, you're talking about legs and lasting a full weekend. After that tying goal for St. Cloud, we didn't really see a whole lot of push out of Duluth, and getting it to overtime there and having a pretty great play with Kupka and Okabe, who've been a nice little overtime pairing. I remember I expressed some confusion when I first saw that pairing back in what I think in Miami series when they had those two out there in overtime. But I think that they click pretty well in that 3-on-3 situation, and nice goal to end it. And like I said, end the weekend, end the regular season on a high note. What did you think about that third period? Not only that call, but then the play after that, and then the overtime. What were your sort of closing thoughts of that weekend? How it ended?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously it benefits St. Cloud, so I was happy. But at the same time, yeah, those are the reviews I don't like. I mean, those are exciting plays in hockey. It's offsides by quarter of an inch. I don't think that was the intent of the rule or intent of the rule of the challenge even. So it's, I think, good for the Huskies, bad overall for hockey, I guess is kind of what it comes down to. On the same time, at the same token there, I mean, that's when Bassie should stop. And I thought Bassie was bad on his angles all game even. And that's where, we kind of talked about the Huskies regressing a little bit when it comes to, or the power play at least, or the goaltending regressing a little bit.
Yes.
Obviously happy with the response by the Huskies. I thought I want to give a kind of a special shout out to Bushy for not only the goal, but I thought defensively he played one of his better games. Maybe not the first period because everyone was garbage in the first period, but like just overall, ever since that, I thought he had one of his kind of better games. I thought Wiley also had a really good game, kind of coming back from his mistake there in Friday's game. So Rogers, I thought he played really well. I thought he was, really starting to use his body, creating some chances. Spellacy, I thought, was showing a lot of things really all weekend. I thought he had a strong weekend. And then, yeah, like you said, that really the third period I thought was incredibly exciting. More exciting than Duluth really has any right to play. I don't know. Maybe it's because we had more of the chances, but I thought there were definitely chances back and forth. And it was, it makes me really excited and kind of bodes well, I think, for this weekend coming up that we're going to see some exciting hockey. And it's not going to be kind of your typical Duluth game. I think it's going to be maybe a little more up and down, more action. So judging by how we played in the last two periods, I'm excited to see this team, excited to make the step. Like I said, Friday I don't want to say for sure, but Friday, I really don't expect Peart and Treyball to play. I think in the end, you do have bigger fish to fry, and if they're not 100%, oh well. Give Reiners and give Wiley maybe a little bit more time, and a little bit more, experience kind of in these situations. So that's why I'm excited to see what happens. I'm excited with what Larson's going to do. If he is going to put, Miettinen back on the top line with Kronola, I don't think he should. I think you just need to put somebody other than Brand there. I think even like a Sean, maybe somebody high energy who can create some space for Cronulla to kind of get back, kind of up and going. So that's, I'm just really looking forward to this weekend. I think it's going to be a good series, and really all of this series there in the NCHC. And I think there's intrigue to definitely two of them. Maybe not the Western CC.
I'll shout out that one. Denver and Miami will be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
Mbarico might make that Western series tight. He played very well there just a couple of weeks ago when they played in Kalamazoo. So I would be surprised if they won the series, but I wouldn't be shocked if he stole a game out of them. So,
but I do
that
think
Omaha Dakota series should be a barn burner.
That's going to be fun. That's going to be fun to watch, or fun to by proxy, I guess. So, so you're not as optimistic as I am going into this series. Is it just the numbers, just the fact that we're 3-0-0-1 or something like that, or 0-3-0-0-1? I don't. Good Lord.
It's not like the talent necessarily. It's just the Duluth and the playoffs factor. It scares me a little bit. Like I said, St. Cloud is a better team than them. Even probably without Travel and Peart, I think they're a better team. But that doesn't matter to Duluth. That's a good spot for them to be in.
Maybe we could start some Sandlin to Wisconsin rumors. If we start those up right now, maybe his team will get psyched out and think that they'll have nothing to play for because Sandelin's going to Wisconsin.
I like that. What are you? It sounds like you're a little bit more optimistic. You're going to call a Huskies series win here.
Yeah, I'm calling a sweep.
Sweep. I do think it's going to be I don't think we're going to play on Sunday either way. I think it's going to be a sweep in either direction.
No, I think actually, you know what? I'm going to make a bold claim. I'm going to pull an Andrew here, and I think first game 4-1 victory. And then the second game, it's going to be a 2-1 overtime or something. Like, it's going to be one here that I think we're going to comfortably come out on Friday. We're going to end up winning, and then Saturday is going to be a close game. But we'll come out on top.
Writing those scores down.
Mark it down, especially with how wrong I'm going to be next week.
But if you're right, we can take that audio and clip it back in there. Like
clip
I did
that
last
audio.
year
Yep.
when I successfully predicted the Bemidji sweep. So we'll hold you to that. What about goaltending? Who's starting on Friday?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you go with Castor.
I agree. Who do you think played better this weekend?
Castor.
I agree. It wasn't like by a lot, but that's why I would go with him on Friday. And so let's say they win 4-1. You're obviously bringing him back for game 2 then, right?
Correct. Yep.
And then he wins 2-1. So you're starting him in the frozen faceoff, right?
Yep.
And then you might just play one game there, but let's say they lose that game just for funsies. He's starting in the regional too?
Yes.
So you're riding Castor.
I'm riding Castor as long as this hypothetical situation is working.
Yeah, let's say in one of these games he gives up 5 goals, or he plays
so let's say he wins Friday, loses Saturday,
and loses poorly, like he gives up 4 or 5 goals.
Mm-hmm. If he gives up that many, then I'm pulling him and giving him another chance on Sunday.
Okay.
So like if he loses,
it sounds like you're willing to ride Castor until there's a hiccup.
Yes.
Which I'm in your camp there.
Yeah.
But I'm just unsure if that's what Larson's thinking too. Like all season it's been.
I also don't know why Brand's on the top line, so I don't know what he's thinking there either. Just add this
on every unit.
Every other shift, there's a Sahlquist out there because those face-offs, those intangibles.
And I think, so Castor's played 3 games in a row, I believe. He played both games of the Gopher series, and I believe he played the first CC game after that. You can maybe fact check that on me. But that's just to say, I think that's the longest stretch of starts for one goalie this year is just the 3 games. So we're at a stretch here where we're playing anywhere from 3 to 3 to 9 games left. And I think I'm with you that I would just put Castor in, and until there is a speed bump, I think run with him. He's, maybe this shouldn't factor into it, but I think it does. Like, he is the senior. He's not coming back, whereas Bassey is coming back. The experience factor, he's played in the tournament before. Obviously, it was a experience we'd all like to forget, but hopefully he can tap on that experience and maybe motivate him in this upcoming postseason, because also he was the goalie in last year's playoff series against Duluth as well. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think that's the most logical thing to do, but far be it for me to really make that to be a bold prediction that that's what's going to happen. And hey, if they get down early, if they have a period like that first period on Saturday where they're down 3-0, maybe it's not even Castor's fault. Kind of like that Omaha pull of Bassey. If you feel like you could change some momentum and get a spark from your team by making a goalie pull, then by all means, I'm all for that. I've been the one all year that just I don't like planning ahead on what you're going to do goaltending wise. I would say just play it as how they're performing on the ice. Make the decision based on who is playing better in that moment. And so I think right now Castor is your better goalie at the moment. And like I said, he does have a slight stats edge on Bassey as well. So you got like a CYA factor there. It's like you're playing your best guy. So I would expect that too, but we'll see how that actually plays out.
Now, yeah, like if we're down 2-rip 10 minutes into the Friday game, put in Bassey, he comes back, plays well. You start Bassey Saturday, he wins. Start Bassey on Sunday, he wins. Yeah, I'm riding Bassey the whole time. So it's I'm riding whoever I think is going to be hot, and but I'm starting Castor, I think, on Friday, and I think his angles were just a little bit better. Bassey, I thought, was just a little bit all over the place, but
I think we are in violent agreement.
There we go
on that point. So yeah, I do think it'll be
and yes, you were correct.
Series.
He had three starts with those 3. So,
and I don't believe Bassey has had. He's done twice in a row, but I don't believe he's had a 3 in a row. Again, we can fact. Yeah, because he played that. Well, he played that second CC game. Then he came back that Friday against Denver, and then they had Castor with the shutout on Saturday of Denver. So I think that just Bassey's just done it back to back, and not. I don't think he's done a back to back weekend this year. Back check me.
The Saturday game in Duluth, and then he got the nod both games against Miami.
Oh, he did. So he has had a 3 in a row. Okay.
And then he came back against North Dakota, so he had 4 straight.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I've clearly blacked out that Miami series for good reason. But I forgot that. Okay. Well, thank you for fact checking me.
Yeah, because he had the 12 shootout saves.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
And then
because of that, he got the start on Saturday.
Yep. But then again, big issue allowing late goals in periods. That Miami game is kind of a perfect example. We let in that extra attacker goal, in that Saturday game to tie it up, and we were able to get the tie shootout win whatever that is in the number, the 6th column or 5th column or whatever. But it's
Which,
so
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, you know, and pick your poison there. I mean, you reverse one of those results. That one, the giving up the late goal to Miami to tie it to go to overtime, or the North Dakota last minute goal, you know, you would have been higher than 4th if you would have reversed just one of those results. But then you would have had North Dakota in the first round instead of Duluth, and I think we both agreed last week that we'd rather see Duluth rather than Dakota. So just funny how it all played out like that. But so yeah, I do think it'll be an entertaining series. It seemed like the CHN does not have an attendance figure for Friday, but Saturday, 5,600. Seemed like there was a decent amount of Duluth fans in the building. One dressed up in an Erickson Eck jersey. That's a annoyance of mine, going to a game wearing a jersey of a team that's not competing. and then on top of that, being conspicuously rooting for a specific team on the ice. Like, you don't have a Duluth jersey because he was clearly a Duluth fan. I don't get the Erickson Eck jersey there.
For a while, I think my freshman year, I wore a Manchester United jersey.
See, and that's even worse. If you do like, I went to a Twins game once and there was like an Islanders jersey there. If you have like a different sport, that's even more of a egregious foul in my book. But
that's that was my idea for like a I don't know what they call it, like an intermission, not an intermission, but like a TV timeout cam where they would scan the crowd and whatnot. It would be like a "Why are you here?" and it would just be people who are wearing the wrong jerseys. Just put them up, and it's like, and it'd be like that. I mean, I guess Minnesota like makes sense, but like I'll be at like North Dakota games, or North Dakota's single, and then someone would be wearing a Blues jersey, and it's like, buddy, what are you doing?
If you're going to come to the game like that, then just sit down and enjoy the game as a neutral fan. Don't be the a-hole fan who's pounding on the glass and doing all that. So, like, if you're gonna either put the jersey of the team you're cheering for, or just sit down and enjoy the game. That's my tip.
So I was doing a little show prep, as I often do on this show, because it's such a highly produced and highly choreographed show that we have here. Just looking at national champions since 2006 and where they ranked in power play, penalty kill, and what their percentages were. Just because our penalty kill has been such a topic of discussion. And also I kind of took a look at, second half slides of some champions and to see who else has kind of fit this mold. Which one would you like me to go over first with my results, my findings?
You're saying national champions?
Yep.
Yep. Well, let's do that. The power play penalty kill first.
Okay, perfect. So I was just looking at penalty kill, and there has been one team that has had a penalty kill that is worse than 80% that has won a national title since 2006.
6?
Yep, exactly. So that one team.
I'm trying to think. Don't.
Perfect. Geez. All right. So 2000
under 80%.
Under 80%. That went back to 2006 Wisconsin.
I remember Denver last year had not a very good power.
You are correct. Really? Denver.
I wasn't ready to lock that in, but
jeez.
I guess I wouldn't have thought it was under 80 though. I know it's
79.
It's even not that good this year either.
Yeah.
It's kind of been a problem for them.
And that's actually what Let's Go DU pointed out on Twitter, is that if they win the national title again, it is again under 80%. Wow. They were 39th ranked penalty kill in the nation. Nearly everybody else in that, I mean, UMass was at 91.7%. They were tops.
This was last year, you're saying?
2 years ago, when UMass won.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were tops. Pretty much everyone else was in the 80s. 85, 82, 86, 86, kind of somewhere in the 88, from 84. Even that Yale team, 84%. Michigan State was at 86% in 07.
So generally, very not just above average, but very good penalty kills.
Yeah, usually top 15 in the country.
Okay.
Now, like I said, Denver obviously was that outlier, and it was last year. Kind of makes me think, and I want to know what your take is on it. Is it, are we at the chicken or at the egg? Are we the hammer or the nail here? Is the NCHC, is our penalty kill overall really bad because everyone's power play is so good? Or is it the inverse?
We brought this up a couple of weeks ago. I floated that in not as terse of terms as you did, so I thank you for that. I struggle.
I'm a terse person. What can I say? Very terseful of me.
Yes. Struggling to come up with something. I'm not being very terse myself right now, but God, where were we at? I lost my train of thought now. Chicken or the egg?
Chicken or the egg?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of that. These power plays are very good. Also,
oh my gosh, sure. I forgot to mention Saturday overtime. How many tripping calls were there?
Oh my God!
And then not only that, if you're not going to call, if you know you're not going to call, why not just start running pick plays? Just start running interference to open up lanes and get breakaways. It just makes so much sense. If they're not going to call obvious trips and one goaltender interference, that was pretty obvious on Bassey. Why not just accidentally bump into somebody else to create a screenplay so you can get an easy breakaway? I don't understand. They're not going to call that if they're not going to call all those other trips.
Well, this kind of feeds into a theory I have about how good these power plays are. I'm sure this isn't. You'd have to fact check this heavily, and I'm not even sure if it's accurate. But does the NCHC call more penalties per capita, for to put it lightly, than other? So, is there more power play opportunities in this league versus other leagues? Watching the Big Ten, it seems like they call the least amount of penalties. And maybe I'm saying that because I went to a game in Arizona State game, which they use Big Ten refs, that there was one total penalty called. And watching some of the Penn State, Ohio State games that I did this weekend, it seemed like there were some calls, but those games, like the Sunday game I watched, it was done in 2 hours and 10 minutes. They just fly by.
Seriously, 12-minute intermissions are the best thing to happen. The best thing the Big Ten has ever done. That needs to be a standard.
So, and especially when it comes to 5-minute power plays.
And I think they only have one TV timeout too. I think they only have one TV timeout at the 10-minute mark. Yeah,
something like that. I think you're right too. God. Yeah, it's definitely something that the other leagues should consider, because it does make for a nice speed the game up kind of. You're not missing anything either. You're just cutting out the dead time. So, but yeah, I wonder if my theory has any credence. It very well might not. And I'm sure every fan of, when their team is in any kind, I have friends that say, God, ECAC refs are the worst, and Hockey East refs, my God, they were so terrible, and all this. I'm sure it's just a matter of which conference you most
100%
follow. Those are the worst refs ever. But just from what we've been talking about, we've had the questions. One of the questions last week was it that why do they call so many 5-minute majors? Mm-hmm. Watching the amount of out of non-NCHC games as I do feel like there are more penalties called in the NCHC, and so giving more teams opportunities. And again, I think there also is a snowball effect. Certainly there is with St. Cloud. Once the floodgates open, it can really go pear-shaped pretty quickly for them on the PK. It was nice that on Friday they only took one more penalty after the first power play and then power play goal for Duluth. They limited the chances for Duluth on Friday, which was obviously to their benefit, even though they lost that game. It could have gotten much more out of hand, especially once we saw that in Duluth.
Yeah.
Once that 5-minute major, it's you score one, then the next time you blink, you're down. You've given up two more on the power play. So I don't know if that has any credence, but I do think that it's not there. It's not just that all like I don't think it's too much to be a coincidence that there's so many top 10 power plays in the country that are NCHC teams. And then obviously inversely, there's so many bottom 10 PKs in this conference. So I do think there is a bit of a association or correlation there. Just don't know what the causation necessarily is.
And that's always what's really tough, especially when, because you get the idea of maybe let's look at non-conference games and that, but then you're running into a small sample size. And then, so it's just kind of like, you kind of throw your hands up in the air there.
Interesting to know what that split was. Because remember they didn't give up a power play goal, St. Cloud, until the Mankato series. So that St. Thomas and Wisconsin series, they were perfect on their PK. And we came into that Mankato series saying, boy, looks like this PK is great. And
let's clip that. Yeah, exactly.
But the thing there too is it's not just non-conference. It's you played St. Thomas and Wisconsin. That might have had something to do with it.
Exactly.
They were just for bad teams. So.
Yeah, and nearly all of them had, around a 20% power play percentage. So that's
the title-winning teams. You're saying
the title winning.
So there wasn't
teams.
like any super 30% power play. It wasn't like that was.
Nope.
It didn't seem like that was a common where it's just.
Actually, the highest was again Denver 23.7, and they were 12th. Mass had a 23.4. They were 10th in the nation that year. The one outlier, I guess, that was the lowest was Providence team, 2015. That was at 15.3%.
Yep. And they're on my list of worst national title winning teams for a reason. So thanks for giving me more ammo for that argument.
And then I took a look at just second half streaks or slumps, I guess you can say. So looking at all these champions, and I actually went back a little bit further, but none of them had kind of the slump. And I tried to do it somewhat comparable, maybe not as bad as one regulation win in 9 or 10. So it's maybe not as that bad. And again, our overtime wins, shootout wins, whatnot, put all those asterisks in there are, justified. But, 2013 Yale, they won a stretch when they went 2-6 in the second half. 2011 Minnesota Duluth went 3-4-3 during a stretch. 07 Michigan State went 3-4-2 during a stretch, and then Wisconsin went 3-7-1, including a 4-game losing streak in there.
So are you going like heading into the playoffs, or any time in the second half?
Anytime during the second half. But yeah, it's some of these were going into the playoffs, some of these were just right after Christmas break or whatnot. But, these are national title winning teams that did go through a second half slump. Now, it doesn't bode exactly well that 2013 was the last time with that Yale team, which, again, going into, among the worst of the national title winning teams, that's definitely up there. But I don't know, it was just like there is still a precedent set for having a bad stretch during the second half and going on a tear.
I thought you were going to bring up 2018 Duluth, which, for what I remember, limped into the playoffs. But they would have lost 2 games at the Frozen Faceoff, but that also meant they would have won their playoff series prior to that to get to the Frozen Faceoff. So they wouldn't have been on they would have just been on a 2-game losing streak. But my perception of that team is that they were like under 500 in the second half. I might be wrong on that, but certainly they turned into clunker in the Frozen Faceoff. I would be more interested, like bad spells that coincided with the start of the playoffs. Like it's one thing to have a 4-game losing streak in late January or February and then righting the ship before the playoffs started. It doesn't seem to me that, and it sounds like you've done the research, that a prolonged streak like the Huskies are on now immediately heading into the playoffs does not bode so well as far as at least winning a national title goes. If that's accurate to say.
Yeah, I mean that's accurate to say.
Surprised. I thought Wisconsin. They were number one overall that year.
Yeah, they were the number one overall seed that year, which was pointed out to me after I said that. I was having a discussion just kind of about that, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. They were number one overall." But yeah, they went through a really tough stretch. I think they lost like 4 or 5 straight, even.
Four in a row, all at home. 2 consecutive home series versus Denver
and Minnesota.
Yep. I mean, Denver would have been back-to-back national champ, but they were not a tournament team that year, as I've learned, because that was the year that Carl won Hobie. But he's one of the few Hobie winners to not play for a NCAA qualifying team, interestingly. But yeah, I mean, but they were still good, and they had the best player in the country, at least the Hobie winner. And then the Gophers were that would have been the Holy Cross year, right? For the Gophers, 06 or is it 05?
Minnesota Duluth in that stretch in 2018, they went 10-5 during this after January on in the regular season.
Yeah, it's
so they had a good stretch still.
Your memories can really betray you at some points. Really, they were 10-5.
Yep, they swept CC, swept North Dakota, 1 loss to Minnesota
4
State.
4 out of 5 there in a stretch, lost 4 out of 5. But then 4 in a row. So I guess 5-5. Yeah, so I mean, if you're going back like starting for that Minnesota State game, like 5-5.
I mean, they're
so you can't
they limped in. I mean, they limped in because I mean they lost to Michigan Tech, they lost and tied to Bemidji, they tied Merrimack.
Well, yeah, I mean that first half of the year they were like 7th, I think, in the conference at the Christmas break in the conference standings. They got off to a terrible start, conference play, but yeah, they were able to right the ship a little bit more so than I remember, at least. But they're still Duluth. I hate them. The banners are made of cheese.
So you got one more weekend with them. So that's we've had some exciting playoff matchups. We've had a couple of 3 overtime back-to-back years where each team came out on top. So who knows what's going to happen this time? But I'm looking forward. I think this is a good matchup for the Huskies. I really do.
I remember that 2011 team. Because when the Huskies they played them in the playoffs that year in Duluth. And I remember coming in that year, St. Cloud was playing better. They didn't have a very good year that year, but they had beaten Duluth. They like smoked them at Amsoil. It's like an 8-2 game in there. And I think they tied the other game.
Mm-hmm.
And coming into that was like the sexy upset pick, was that St. Cloud was going to beat Duluth. Because Duluth wasn't playing that great. St. Cloud sort of had their number that year, and they were playing better towards the end of the year, but it wasn't to be. And that was one of those 3 overtime games, I believe, the second game there. So and then last year, obviously. So I think, and then in 07, the nodal year, that was a 3 overtime.
Yep.
Game 3. Duluth was not very good that year.
No,
they won that first game and made things quite difficult for the Huskies all series. I remember being very frustrated.
Yeah.
That weekend. So you can definitely tell, as I mentioned, with the good attendance on Saturday, this rivalry is really thick now, I think.
It's
good to see.
We're a little over an hour into the podcast here, and just now we totally forgot. We got to go with the POW here. So go Huskies woo. Had a player of the weekend, and
can I make a guess that? Well, maybe
no.
I was
go ahead.
I was going to guess.
Shoot it
that
out there.
We're going to be unanimous this weekend.
Oh, you think so?
but that sounds like we're not going to be.
Okay. Well, do you want to go first? Do you want the honors?
I always go first. How about you?
You do always go first. Okay, fine. And basically what he said was that he wanted to give a special shout out to Cooper Wiley. Very nice job, and he and Reiner's getting valuable minutes that'll pay off. Tossed in the power play and didn't look terrible, which I thought I got kind of a little bit to chuckle out of. The game could have gotten too big for him, but it wasn't. And like you said, it was a really good crowd there on Friday or on Saturday's game. So, did like Rogers play over the weekend, caused some disruption with his body and grit. Totally agree. And then VT looked like VT again, which is terrific to see. He's going with Koopa Troopa, Kyler Kupka. 2 goals got us back in it. With his good efforts, energized the building. And that pass to set up Okabe was filthy. So
and you sir.
It was to me it was that toss up, I think, between Kupka and Miettinen for me. And if I were to kind of guess on this one, it's tough. I probably would also say Kupka. I mean, he did also.
Great. Yes.
So unanimous. Yes, we are. Yes, unanimous. We are unanimous. I had to bring out maybe a little bit of suspense there, but Miettinen really took the team on his back there, and kind of saved us from what would have been a disastrous weekend, if we would have not been able to kind of jumpstart a comeback there and have put a little energy back into the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center on senior night and everything. So I do feel that I was about to pick him maybe to be a little contrarian, but I think Kupka's all along. I think we were definitely missing some spark from him. It was his first goal since January 14th against Colorado College. So he's been on kind of a stretch here. So if we get people kind of rolling again, he's popped one back, and hopefully this is a good sign of things to come here coming into this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Obviously, I'm going in Kupka as well. Even in this dry spell, just 1 point from basically since like Anhorn's injury, 1 point prior to this weekend, and 2 points each night, and just his presence was known. I've grown to really like him. I hope we see more of him next year. I hope that he comes back because he's another one of these kind of late bloomer types that could be your team leader next year, or at least one of them.
Very Fitzgerald-esque.
Yes. So. I remember saying he's going to put up like a Fitzgerald type year, like a Fitzgerald 5th year kind of year next year if he decides to come back, and you seem to scoff at that. But I think it's, he's up to 22 points this year, and that's with some time missed because he had that injury in November-ish. So just the 28 games this year. So, for a while he was going at a point per game pace and had that dry spell. But if we kind of get this kind of Kupka coming, for the remainder of the year, that's part of the recipe for getting back to that kind of what we were expecting the first half of this team. So yeah, very much so. Thumbs up to Kupka. I agree also with Miettinen. Agree also with Bushy. Yeah, throwing praise to him as well. Thought he played well this weekend, particularly considering the lack of depth we have now. We're just down to 6 guys, and we got no other reinforcements beyond that. So you got to really lean on especially your older guys, Meyer and Bushy, to really step up in Puritan Treble's absence. So shout out to him as well. Agreed on Kupka. And glad that we are all in agreement.
Yep. And then I believe, at the beginning of the year, we talked about the defense, and I thought, the defense looking solid. And dropped off a little bit. Like I said, Trey Ball, Peart, I don't think has kind of made that initial step that people have. I guess that we've hoped. Again, I thought he'd be a little bit more like a Nishan type, and he's not nearly as dependable on either side of the ice as Nishan. So, but it's going to be a big test here this weekend to see if this defense can kind of keep things together, even though they're going to be potentially down, Peart and Treyball again. So it's going to be, these teams are definitely going to hate each other, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I have no inside information about their injury status. I'm sure you don't either.
No.
But, I don't like the idea of like, well, we'll just rest them for the NCAAs. Like, you're not going to be 100% at this point of the year, so I'm not saying wait till they're 100%, but I got to feel if they're 80, 85%, like, throw them out there. Like,
throw them as a seventh defenseman?
Or not. Just throw them in there as they regularly will. I mean, we saw this last year of, well, it's okay with Castor. We'll get Renak healthy for the regional, and that never happened. So never count your.
I mean, there's a little bit difference between being banged up and having pneumonia.
This is true.
So I mean, that's very a true. Little bit different.
This is true. But yeah, I'd say if they're not in crutches like Anhorn is, put them out there.
Sure.
And yeah, maybe ease them in. But this is playoffs, baby.
Yeah,
and it's not
rub some dirt on it.
The frozen face-off isn't the ultimate prize here, but it's Duluth. It's a rivalry. You can end Duluth season.
That's true. That's worth everything in the world,
right? I don't want Duluth to be 2 wins away from a cheesy automatic qualifier bid.
Yeah,
end their season this weekend when it's in your control. So I'd say don't be hesitant. Like I would say, again, we only got 3 to 9 games left. Let's hope that 9 is the number of games that we have left. Well, let's say 8, because 9 would mean we're going to a third game against Duluth. We don't need to do that. So yeah, let's -1 because we don't want to play that Sunday game. So 8 is the number, and I think that those guys got 8 games left.
So, overall, then, kind of looking at the season, and as a whole, as we wrap up regular season, I don't exactly remember my comments or what they were, but I mean, I believe I have to chalk the season up as a win. I know I'm maybe foreshadowing one of the questions, maybe a little bit here, that kind of asks, what is your a successful season? What would it look like now that the postseason is here? But it's, I want to say that I am, on, like, this is a good result. This is better. I think this team has overperformed. What would you say?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I went back and listened to our season.
Yeah, you went back and listened to it. And you teased that earlier, so I'm on the edge of my seat. Actually, this is going to be interesting.
I really had to put an effort to listening to it, because I'll say, just as an aside, very poor audio quality. If you're with us now, we're in a much better spot, and I feel like we've been very. It's
good. Amazing what like $200 thrown at an actual. So if you want to Venmo us a tip to help pay for actual decent audio quality.
And trust me, I've been pounding the pavement here trying to sell these ads. I hope to be getting some action on that, and we'll hope
for a return from GrampAid.
Yeah, they're not returning my calls, which is unfortunate.
Shocker.
Just to say that that was probably a rock bottom, actually, was that podcast.
God.
But it was an interesting podcast. So I'll just summarize it first. I kind of won between when we did the predict the standings. So just to recap.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the standings or the team? Like our team thought. Okay.
Touching on both. Just for these standings.
I'll let you drive. Sorry. Yeah.
I had four correct teams placed correctly. So I had Denver number 1, St. Cloud number 4, CC at 7, Miami at 8. You had 1 correct with the Huskies.
Huskies at 4.
I had Denver.
I tried to overthink too much. I think I tried to be the contrarian and not put Miami last. That was stupid. When in doubt, follow the herd. That's just, why do I go out on limbs?
Well, we both sort of followed the herd with North Dakota and Duluth this year. I mean, I had Denver, UND, UMD as 1, 2, 3. You had UND, UMD, and Duluth as your top, and Denver as your top.
I had Denver as 3. Yeah, I thought they lost too much.
You were down at that. Yep, and you said that Corona you think is average.
I still think he's average.
Some things never change. We were both kind of like, yeah, Western's kind of cute, but they lost a bunch of players in the offseason too.
Jeez.
We both had them at 5th. And then, so we were exactly alike with 4 and 5. We both had St. Cloud at 4 and Western at 5. The bottom third, I had UNO at 6, CC at 7, Miami at 8. You had CC at 6, Miami at 7, and UNO.
So we both had Western. Oh no, we both had Western at 5th.
Western.
That's right. Okay.
Being second place.
Yeah, there.
So really, the 3 teams. 4, I guess, if you want to count Western. But, so yeah, let's say 4 teams that we really missed on. We were too high on North Dakota and Duluth. And we were too low on Western and particularly Omaha.
I was really low on Omaha.
Yeah, you missed out on 5 spots there.
Jeez. 5 out of 8 spots. That is a swing and a miss. Gavin, I think he's a shoo-in, right, for Coach of the Year?
Gabinet?
Yeah.
Probably him and Furschweiler, but did Furschweiler win it last year? I feel like he did.
And
if he did, then yeah, I would give the nod to Gabinet. That's always a Coach of the Year is always not.
We thought you were going to suck.
The best coach. It's who exceeded their expectations more. And even if you say that we undersold Western, I still think that Omaha outperformed anyone's expectations. So yeah, I'd probably agree with that. Interesting, kind of just like from St. Cloud's perspective. So it was the talking points were goaltending question marks. I think even at one point you said, if we can get a 9-1 save percentage out of the goaltending, I think that's a good sign.
Hey,
we even got a little bit better than that. 9-14-ish is I think what you'd average between Castor and Bassey. So. And for a while, that was way exceeding expectations.
For a while, we were way up there.
And we were concerned with scoring depth, which I don't think we were too off on that. I don't think that we expected as much out of Crookshank. And he has tailed off the second half.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was more on pace for a 40-point year in the first half, but settling in at 31 in the second or to finish the regular season. I got to bring up my stats here again. But we were definitely thinking that he was going to be a factor, but not to the extent I think that 30 points would have put it. So that was another question mark as far as where is like the third and fourth lines going to be. And, I don't think we were too off on that. I think this team is running on those top 2 lines primarily, and we're getting good when the team does very well, it's when we're getting guys like Ingram and these kind of guys, when they produce, that's when things are going really well. For the most part, it's been it's as you've mentioned, it's either when Crannel and Okabe are really hot or when Crookshank and his line is really hot. At first half of the year, we were having both of those lines clicking at the same time. Now it seems to be either one or the other. is going to be clicking. So I don't think that we were too far off on that. The difference we had is I did pick them as a tournament team, and I was pretty spot on because I said it's going to be similar to last year, where they're going to be like 8 or 9. I think I put, and right now they're at 7. Whereas you did not. You said that you did not think that St. Cloud is going to make the NCAAs, and you almost were like down on the NCHC, which is prescient, I think, because you said that the NCHC is only going to get 3 teams in. Now, I did not think that you were thinking it's going to be Denver, North Dakota, and Duluth.
And Duluth, yeah.
Not Denver, Western Michigan, and St. Cloud. And potentially, there's a better chance that they'll get 4 teams in than less than that. Those 3 teams are solid to make the tournament. So you were correct. So far, you're correct on the number of teams. You just weren't correct about the certain.
See, that's why I should just talk in broad generalities and just say 3 and move on. Like why do I try to do more than that?
Interesting too, like when we're previewing like freshmen, and this is why I want to talk about Howard for Duluth, or touch on him at least, is that, you know, I'm certainly not one that follows prospects super intently, and I at least, I'll speak for myself, was kind of keying in on the NHL draft picks that were going to debut for the NCHC this year. Howard being the only first-round draft pick in the conference this year. And as you said, 16 points, underwhelming, especially when you consider the other first-round picks in college this year. You had Cooley and Snuggerud.
Yeah.
Both 45 points plus. Cutter Gauthier for BC.
They don't play defense in the Big Ten, though, so put an asterisk on that.
That's true. Well, and Michigan had a couple of first-rounders. That Nazar was injured. He's just been back recently, but they had a McGrory who's had a decent year for them. Fantilli, who he's not even draft eligible yet, might win the Hobie. I think it's between him and Pollen for Hobie, frankly. Yeah. So
I'm seeing a couple rumblings with Michigan Tech's goalie, but I think the advent of the Richter, I think he's going to get.
He'll win the Richter. I don't. He's got to put up like a McKay 4-year, like 5-year resume, I think, to get Hobie. He'll win Richter. I don't think he'll win Hobie, but he might be a top 3. I wouldn't put that out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I can see that.
But so we were kind of keying on these when we were mentioning North Dakota, and we kept saying Dylan James is the freshman to key on because he was their highest draft pick. As it turned out, Jackson Blake was the freshman to look at. James had a good weekend this weekend against Omaha. Had a couple of goals on Friday, and if he wakes up, I mean, that could make North Dakota that much scarier. But he really had sort of a Howard-esque season, where a lot of hype coming in for James, but at this point in the season, 14 points, and that's with having to hustle here at the end just to get to 14. Had 3-point weekend this last weekend, so that was interesting. It's interesting that that freshmen in this conference played a huge role. It's just not the freshmen that we thought. No one was talking about Ryan McAllister for Western Michigan, who's got to be freshman of the year. Maybe Blake, but I mean, McAllister's top 5 points in the nation in points. I got to imagine he's got inside track for that. Ben Steeves, we didn't mention him at all. Mentioned Howard a few times, but Steeves is the one that led their team in scoring as a freshman. Denver of the NCHC drafted players. Denver actually had the top 2 with Aiden Thompson and Devine. And Adam Ingram had a 20-point season for the Huskies, which is on the higher end for that. Mentioning some of these higher end draft picks that didn't have great years points wise. Ingram at least is at 20 points as a freshman young player like him. Pretty impressive. So yeah, I would say that it's just interesting how freshmen can play such a X factor for these teams. It's just a lot of times it seems more so when it comes to first round talent, that's more predictable from they can be a game changer. But a lot of time, and maybe it's an NCAA thing too, as you said, the Big Ten is a younger league, and for sexier prospects, that might be a league that they're going to thrive in more so than NCAA, which tends to be a little older, tends to be a little bit more physical. So it might be much more of an adjustment, kind of a learning curve for freshmen to come into the NCAA than it is the Big Ten. So that certainly is a possibility, but just interesting how that sort of played out. And then also goaltending too, not just with St. Cloud, but there was question marks abound for the entire conference. DeRitter talked about how that's going to be a question mark for them. That turned out to be a dud. Western Michigan with Cameron Rowe looked in the first half of the year that was not really panning out. He's really picked up in the second half of the year, and his stats are in that 9-9-1 range, as you put it. UNO, obviously, huge question mark in goaltending, and that's really turned out to be well for it to work out like a charm for them, because not only has Latkozy been very good, but even this Kucharski has been serviceable for them too. So, and Barrico might be. Do you think he's goalie of the year? It's weird to say a 7th place team, but
maybe.
Name me a better goalie in this conference.
Yeah, I don't think so. Unless they just go by wins. Pearson.
Which, if they give it to Krona, you're leaving.
Oh, good Lord.
Who did not play this week? He didn't play at all against CC this last weekend. They gave that Davis both starts, so they use that series as sort of a rest.
Yeah, they're resting that one.
Rest and get healthy, and we'll still sweep CC weekend. But so that was kind of the thoughts, not only about St. Cloud but about the league as a whole.
What did we say about Anhorn?
Didn't really mention him at all.
Geez.
I didn't listen to the whole podcast, but because it was kind of tough to listen to, so I didn't listen to the whole thing. I think I missed more.
Thank you to our OG fans for listening to us. We appreciate it.
I'm sure from what I remember, I remember that St. Thomas game, and they came back and saying, who had Dylan Anhorn scoring the first goal of the year? Whoever had that on their bingo board, and kind of chuckling about it. I mean, certainly we thought that, hey, this is a 20-point guy at Union. You know, he can be a nice little depth piece for this team. Nice. I don't think we were ever
nice little
imagining that he was going to be the team leader.
That he's still 5th in points.
Right.
So
yeah. And one other thing I did this weekend, I just quickly 10th year of the conference, and I kind of just went by and I did the place that each team landed in, or the seed in the tournament, because there was tied in some cases, just whatever their seed was for the playoffs in each year, and I averaged them out. So because it's interesting, so this was Miami's 5th last place finish.
Wow. I would have guessed more.
But they are not the lowest team on this. CC is.
CC is lower, huh? Okay.
7th place again this year. And we've kind of said, CC taking a step forward, and just mentioning Barrico might be the odds-on favorite for goalie of the year.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yet another 7th place finish. I mean, this is their high watermark is 6th in this conference. This is it starting in 2014. 7th, 8th, 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 7th, 6th, 8th, 7th, 7th, 7th. They're the only team never to host a first-round playoff series in the conference playoffs. And Miami barely skirts by them because they had that 2014-2015 season where they were second in the standings and made the tournament against CC. Also, the only team in the conference never to make the NCAAs. They've only made the Frozen Faceoff once. UNO is still the only team there that has to get that monkey off their back. But
UNO hasn't made a conference tournament since the Bush administration.
That is correct. 05. We mentioned that on the podcast too.
Yep.
And so of these teams, do you know who would have averaged out to be the number 1 team?
Average out to be the number 1 team
in the first 10 years.
I mean, I guess it would be Denver, but it might be North Dakota.
It's North Dakota.
Okay.
Slightly. It's North Dakota, Denver, St.
Cloud,
and UMD
and then
are pretty close together. And then you have Western Michigan slightly above Omaha, and then Miami and CC. And
what's the grouping then for, or like what's the average?
so for UND, it was 2.7.
Okay.
For Denver is 3.0. St. Cloud is 3.1. UMD was 3.4.
Oh wow.
So pretty close together. But
Yeah.
UND has won the most Penroses. Penrye?
The Penrye.
Proper plural.
Penroses supposes his toes are roses, as Penroses supposes erroneously.
And they've only, so this will be their, and this was their lowest year. I mean,
Hey.
sixth place finish.
Earlier, like 15, 20 minutes ago, you kept saying Creedence, and then I was going to ask you what your favorite CCR song was. And now I just remembered I was going to ask that. What's your favorite CCR song?
Lodi.
Really?
Like that.
It's kind of a deep cut.
I mean, it'd be on their greatest hits.
I mean, it would be, but like, man, I am way base.
Lord, stuck in Lodi.
Oh man, I am basic then.
What do you got? What do you got? Fortunate Son?
No, Down on the Corner. Love Down on. That's like my go-to.
Yeah, we come to this like every month. We have Boomer Corner, hosted by a couple of millennials. This is
we got to get a soundbite for Boomer Corner, and then like the back.
Poetic.
Get off my lawn.
We've done Beatles content. We've done Yellow, Queen, and now CCR.
That's
good.
Well, we used to always just have Wings references, so it's
or news radio.
Yeah. Or news radio.
We're trying to mix it
up. We're trying to get that Boomer demographic to download our podcast.
That is correct. That's what the numbers are telling me. That's what the analytics that we get.
That's why we want Grampede back as a sponsor.
People have been asking me, hey, it seems like these ads really aren't tailored to your clientele, but I'm just saying these are the demographics that we get, and the analytics are never wrong.
They're never wrong.
So yeah, that was a nice little.
Oh, that was cool.
At 10 years, it was always nice to check in to see kind of
the state of the conference.
The big gut punch there, at least from a St. Cloud's perspective, that top four pairing, the grouping of those four teams that I mentioned: UND, Denver, St. Cloud, and Duluth. St. Cloud, the only one of those teams not to have a national championship.
Not to have a natty. Yep.
In that time frame. So let's hope that changes sometime soon.
It'll change in April.
Maybe not this. Yeah, maybe this year. Let's hope.
So then switching over to sinkers and floaters. Sinker dropping 2 spots in the pairwise. St. Cloud State. So
go Huskies woo.
Go Huskies woo. Obviously still very solidly in contention, or not really in contention, but like solidly in the NCAA tournament. Notre Dame, they're done. They're I mean, if we want to do maybe one last hurrah.
Wisconsin rule update. Go Packers.
That's the dream is dead. Officially.
Yes, they needed to be swept by Michigan State, which, I mean, they lost 2 out of 3 to Michigan State, so winning a game there dropped them to 19th. If they would have gotten swept, they would have dropped even further.
Mm-hmm.
So that was our only chance for it. And so, yes, a sad moo for the Wisconsin rule. Like, the matrix, I believe, still gives Notre Dame like 0.3% chance of making the tournament, which, I mean, they're not playing any more games, so that's assuming like everyone above them loses. I mean, again, 0.3% chance of that happening, so they're not dead, but
North Dakota right now is at a 0.2% to get an at-large. I guess right now, to wrap up sinkers and floaters, Minnesota State. Yeah, Minnesota State floating up to 12 in their pairwise, up 3 spots. So that was kind of the big jump there. But if we want to, flip on over.
CHN pairwise probability matrix.
I want to know what the 0.2, like what 40 things need to happen for North Dakota to get an at-large.
Because technically it's possible.
It's possible.
Cornell, Michigan State, Merrimack, Northeastern, well, Notre Dame's not playing any more games, Omaha, Connecticut, that they all lose every single game remaining. That's probable. And then North Dakota would win. If they're doing an at-large, that's saying they're not winning the conference tournament. So they sweep Omaha and then make it to the title game of the Frozen Face-Off. That apparently could make the jump. They're just 6 spots below, I suppose. So, yeah, very remote possibility, but it has to factor in the very remote possibility of all those other teams face planting in front of them. But yeah, like I said, Notre Dame's basically done. Michigan State, at 15, let's see, the matrix uses Cratch, so they rank them by Cratch rather than pairwise. So Michigan State's 16th in pairwise. But they're playing the Gophers this coming weekend, just the single game semifinal. The Gophers have just curb stomped Michigan State this year. I can't see them winning that game. And if they lose that game, even because, or even factoring in the fact that the Gophers are number 1, a loss to them really should hurt you. It should hurt you the least in terms of RPI because they were the best team. But if they lose that game, you got to figure they're done. So it's looking more and more likely that Big Ten is going to just put in the 4 teams.
Yeah.
Penn State is done now for the regular season. They're pretty much a lock for.
God, I hope St. Cloud plays Penn State. What a bye!
I wouldn't mind that either.
What a bye that would be.
But the one factor there that I hate is that it would be in Allentown and you'd be facing a partisan crowd. And maybe that's exactly what St. Cloud needs.
Yeah,
because that would put they're given no shot. The fans are all against them. God, the more that I think about it, the more I want that.
Yeah, right. Let's do it. Let's root for it.
Well,
let's go back to Billy Joel. What's your favorite Billy Joel song?
Scenes from an Italian restaurant.
You know what? I think I've asked you that question before, and I think that's exactly the answer that you said.
I really like that song.
Fair. You're consistent. What can we say? And I think I went on a little bit of a what the heck is that? And
then I probably mentioned that it's off the album The Stranger.
Yeah.
My mom had the tape in our Astro van, and we wore that tape out. I could name every single song, probably every lyric of every song of that album.
And then I chimed in with my story about my parents always had the soundtrack to The Big Chill. And that tape deck, and it was Marvin Gaye's Heard It Through the Grapevine. Anyway.
Get this. So I don't think I mentioned this last time that I mentioned The Stranger, but Just the Way You Are won Song of the Year at the Grammys by Billy Joel, whose name has 9 letters. 30 years later, Bruno Mars, who has 9 letters in his name, won a Grammy for Song of the Year for a song called Just the Way You Are. They are not, it's not a remake of the song. 2 separate songs by 2 separate musicians. Same title, wins Grammy Song of the Year. Whip that out at your next trivia.
Jeez. 30 years apart. What were those years again?
Well, I don't know what the years. Stranger would have been 77. I don't know exactly when Bruno Mars was. It would have been early 2010. So maybe more than 30 years, but somewhere in that range.
Right.
It's a good nugget.
Good little nugget there. I'll remember that. I'll be a big hit at parties now.
That's right. Just like I
am. And then, obviously, the darling of the pairwise probability matrix, the Nanooks, who are done playing games, just kind of in a waiting period. They're at 90% right now. Hanging on to that fourth tier, that fourth band. There's a chance that they can get up to 12 and get a 3 seed, but for an independent, kind of stepping up, swiping, and it didn't even look that good a few weeks ago. The chances I don't think were that high, so they kept winning. I did think that they were going to stumble, so I guess kudos to them for kind of sneaking up and grabbing a spot.
Yeah, so 90% means there's a 10% chance that they miss the tournament.
Which, if anyone's played Fire Emblem before or XCOM, 90% chance to hit means like you're gonna miss it like half the time. So like that game has ruined percentages for me.
So it's just
for my nerd friends out there.
And I think I was erroneous last week when I was saying, they're at 12, and if they stick at 12, then 5 conference upsets aren't going to steal the last 5 spots. But that's really not the issue. The issue is other teams below them could pass them. And so like Cornell right now is 0.0007 RPI points away from Alaska. I mean, so if they sweep their upcoming playoff series against Clarkson, which is not a foregone conclusion, they haven't beaten Clarkson this year, but let's just say they do, they would probably hop Alaska. Merrimack is not that far away from them either. So their biggest, the 10% of them missing the tournament would be teams below them jumping them and like maybe having 2. Atlantic Hockey takes the 16th spot, and then one team from outside the top 15 snags another at large. That's how they would miss the tournament. Because, again, they're not playing another game, so they themselves can't improve their RPI. And as I mentioned last week, because they're playing Lindenwood, who's second to worst in RPI themselves, those games, those wins won't count really in their RPI. I remember their RPI last week was 5.432. I just remember that because of the number sequence. They did actually drop to 5.421 by winning those 2 games. It's more based on their strength of schedule weakening a little bit because of the other teams they've played this year, like Notre Dame losing. So they lost actually a slight amount of ground to the fact that they're actually tied in RPI with Mankato right now. Mankato actually must be percentage points up because the CHN is giving them the RPI edge over Alaska, even though they're both listed here at 5.421. Obviously, the decimal points or digits beyond those 4 are in the slight favor of Mankato at the moment. And again, the teams ahead of them too could also drop. So it's not just dependent on the teams below them. I mean, they're still like 90%. They're most likely going to make the tournament. So it is definitely interesting. It's not anything that we foresaw coming. I don't think anybody did. But no. Congrats to them.
It just as we're talking about playoffs and the NCHC, obviously, other than the St. Cloud Minnesota Duluth series, you're putting a star on that North Dakota Omaha series.
I think it was like back in December, we're like, that's how it's going to happen, right? Is they're going to end up playing North Dakota, and North Dakota is going to beat them. So I got to go with that.
Yeah.
I think that's the most obvious candidate for an upset. I mean, maybe you could say the Duluth and St. Cloud, but those 2 series.
I don't think that would be an upset either way it goes for Duluth and St. Cloud.
Yeah.
Just
I think it'd be a slight upset just based on like pairwise positioning, but the way factoring in the way that St. Cloud's been playing, probably more of a coin flip situation. But those 2 series, I think, will have the most intrigue, as we mentioned. Imberico might make it interesting in that Western CC series. I did this last year with the Mankato St. Thomas series, where I think I predicted like 15-1 combined score in that series, and it was like a 3-2 game, and there's another tight game in that series. So I don't want to do that again with Denver and Miami, but that's not going to be close, is it?
No,
or are you going playoffs? It's second season. Wipe all the records away and watch out for the Red Hawks.
Identical 4-1 victories, at least, for Denver, I think.
So they had identical 7-0 victories in their previous series in Denver this year. So 4-1.
I'm giving Miami a benefit of the doubt then that they'd be able to claw back to make it only a 4-1 loss. But you know, if I'm looking at it from a fan aspect, at the Frozen Face-Off, I mean, having the first game or the second game, you know, but having the 4 matchups be Denver and North Dakota, and then St. Cloud against Western Michigan, I think that's just the most. Like, I don't think you can get more entertaining matchups.
Well, and the league's lucking out a little bit with the St. Cloud and Duluth series because at least one Minnesota team will make it. But there is a chance. I mean, if you're going chalk, you got Denver, Western Michigan, and Omaha could possibly be in there with no North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like the disaster matchups would be Denver, CC, Miami, and Western. Like you would have no team really in driving distance to make it. And it's close to that. I was almost tempted to go contrarian and say
chaos bracket
and say Omaha's going to beat North Dakota. It's like, hey, it's the bit now to say that Omaha's never going to make the Frozen Face-Off. And they haven't beaten North Dakota at all this year. And so maybe that's, but I think, especially the way that North Dakota played this last weekend, I do think that they're going to get the job done even on the road. And cue the, I think there might be some conspiracy theorizing going on because it's like NCHC wants North Dakota to have a face-off. Like they're going to, if you've been saying like they were complaining about calls in the St. Lawrence series, imagine the uproar over it'll be some like 5-minute major that North Dakota will score 3 goals on. And it's going to be, NCHC refs. I'll call that. You call those Denver Miami scores. I'll call a Omaha Twitter temper tantrum.
There you go. I like it. You know, and not to say, like even if Omaha does, I think that's an exciting team at least.
Those games,
like,
I watched a fair amount.
Those games will still be fun.
Series in North Dakota this past weekend. Omaha tied it up late on Friday. It's kind of a back and forth game at the end. They scored 2 late goals. There was like 3. Like Omaha tied it, then North Dakota went back up, and then Omaha tied it again. Another overtime win for North Dakota, like their 5th of the year, something like that. So those are, and then the Saturday game was another kind of late goal to finish that. Bit of controversy there with a video review that I thought was going to result in a goal negated because of some goalie contact, but I thought rightfully they let the goal stand. So yeah, it was interesting.
Every time they go to the review booth, the NCHC refs flip a coin. Anytime NCHC refs go to the review, God flips a coin. I don't know. There's something Game of Thrones-esque to kind of be like, who knows how this is going to go.
I'm going to go to the box. Don Adam flips a coin.
He missed it by that much. So, anything else before we hop into questions?
Let's hop into questions.
First question. A friend of the show, Dan Jacobson, who has probably been with us ever since those high, low quality season previews.
He was there, thick and thin.
He was there, thick and thin. Probably our most loyal listener, and it's Minnesota Duluth, and all we do is just bash them.
That is right.
So, how glad are you guys to be done with 3-on-3 and shootouts for the year? I'm incredibly happy just because to me they're one and the same. And I think ties are not bad. I think you should be. Sometimes you just don't deserve to win or lose. You just deserve to tie, and that should be okay. Um, and I don't love the glorification of 3-on-3 because it is just a glorified shootout, in my opinion. But yeah, people love the 3-on-3. I'm okay never to watch or not to watch those again for the rest of the season. So,
More and more violent agreement.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Although I'll say that St. Cloud, kind of as a rarity, did pretty well.
Yeah.
In overtimes and especially shootouts. They've always kind of
Moscow's year shootouts. It was just I think we went like 3 years in the NCHC before shooting a shootout goal.
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, they were.
God, remember those early? It was just one. It was only one person, and then there was. Oh man, and there was just so much confusion with the shootouts and when it was supposed to go, and whether or not there was supposed to be a dry scrape in between, and anyway, it was a time.
Yes, it was.
So.
But yeah, I do like the 5-on-5 overtimes better. I wish we would go back to that for the whole regular season. But yeah, now it's 20 minutes, 5-on-5 overtimes, and play
as God intended.
And that means that the whole pairwise, like 66-33 overtime split, that's history.
Out the window.
These games will just count the same as a regulation win from here on out. So that's good to know.
Alex Fern, favorite season memories. So as we're wrapping up the season, overall, just anything kind of stick out to you? To me, obviously, those comebacks against North Dakota, to me, really ring as a high water mark for the season.
Just kind of like cycling through their schedule to see if it kind of like pops up memories. The Kupka play behind the net to set up the game winner against Mankato on that Saturday game. Remember, it was such a bad no call. The Mankato fans were crying about that. I remember that. The Ingram highlight reel goal against Bemidji at home, I think, is a good memory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you said, those 2 North Dakota wins at home were great. The Casters shutout against the Gophers, was a good one. The Denver sweep of Denver, it's like the best memory we have. The most recent,
good memory. Yeah,
so. Because since then, well, we had that one good win in Omaha.
We had that one complete game.
Sweeping Wisconsin, who factored into Granado's ouster today, as you referred to.
There was a lot that factored into his ouster, and the fact that he got an extension last year was absolutely ridiculous.
Well, he is not getting an extension this year.
Not getting an extension
this offseason. It's another sexy job in college. I mean, we had Michigan State, BC, BU all having coaching vacancies last year. Now it's Wisconsin. It's another pretty big program with a bunch of resources.
And now all the hot takes are coming out of who they should have, and
who's the what's the earliest buzz, because that's always the best buzz.
Hastings.
He's been like
he's on everyone's.
Michigan State, I think he was linked to. Michigan, maybe. That's the other thing. Like with this Narado in Michigan, I bet you he gets the job now. But when they hired him as an interim, he's still the interim coach. Some people are probably saying he's just keeping the job warm for
Brett Larson.
Lehman's another guy that's always rumored to move on from Providence. But I bet you Narado's. But that's another coaching situation that will need to be resolved. They'll either take take the interim tag off, which I think will happen.
Yeah.
Or they could, I guess. If he's embroiled in scandal, maybe they need to go another direction. But
it is a Michigan college, so that's...
When was it last year that Mankato re-signed Hastings, even though they didn't really need to, but because of the rumors of him going, I think he parlayed that into a little extra cash.
A little extra pay bump?
Maybe
do it again.
Maybe
Keep
that
going.
happens again.
Don't hate the player, hate the game. So let's... I don't know if St. Cloud had a chance to counter or match with Motzko. I don't think we could have. I don't think we would have come close to that. But
yeah, it'd be interesting. Like, I'm trying to think if there's like a Wisconsin alum that's coaching somewhere. Mark Osiki was a guy that coached Ohio State, and I think he was on Granado's staff for a little bit. And he was on he played on one of their championship, natty teams. But I feel like he's past his prime. I don't think he's going to be hired. I don't. Maybe they'll get Eves back. Bring back the sweater vest.
There you go.
I don't think he's doing anything now. So no, it'll be very interesting to see who they get, because that's a job with a lot of prestige that has kind of lost its shine here. So opportunity for someone to rebuild that program.
Call Muzzerall. That's my hot take.
All right, there you go.
Honestly, for what she's done with Ohio State, Ohio State was not a good program before she took over. And the fact that, defending champion and now again, a top seed in the national tournament, I think only 4 losses this year. I'm not even joking. They should give her a good look, but they never would. But
do you, as we're on the topic, do you have a pick for the women's tournament?
Ohio State, yeah.
I don't know. Gophers look pretty decent, beating them in the title game,
the
WCHA title game. Now it's at Ritter,
yeah.
So I got a home crowd there advantage, but yeah, defending champ. You got to think that they've got the target on their back, so to speak. So if you want to take Ohio State, Yale.
I feel like it's a cop out taking Ohio State, but
and I don't want to take Minnesota, but I feel like
it's a good pick. They're a solid team. I just feel like they're prone to clunkers more than Ohio State is.
True.
Especially because then they would have to go through Minnesota Duluth too. Because I think
Minnesota would.
Yep. So, and I think that going up against a goaltender like Minnesota Duluth has, I think that's where Minnesota can fumble. Which
they did, correct? No, Duluth lost to Ohio State. I thought that Minnesota played Duluth in the semis, but they beat Wisconsin, where Duluth lost to Ohio State. That might be their biggest roadblock, because they'll play the winner of Clarkson Duluth.
Mm-hmm.
I got to think that Ohio State's going to be good on their half of the bracket. They've got all Eastern teams to face.
Yeah,
they'll play either Quinnipiac or Penn State, which I would be confident that Ohio State's going to win that game. Northeastern and Yale. Yale had a great start to the year that kind of tailed off. Colgate actually beat them in the title game. Or no, Colgate beat Clarkson. I'm sorry. Yale lost to Clarkson in the semis. So, but Colgate being the ECAC winner, that could present a challenge for Minnesota as well. Although Colgate might have to get past Wisconsin in order to get that up. I'm going to say it's going to be all WCHA final again, as it was last year. I'm not going to. I'll say Minnesota over Ohio State to be the contrarian.
All right. It's a good pick. I know it's all chalk, but it's chalk for a reason.
Right.
Solid. Alex kind of kept it going with, could this be the win that gets the team going? I think emotionally this win was big for the Huskies, more so than how big it was on paper. Because in paper, it meant nothing. But I think, emotionally, being able to come back and just being able to have them know that they can do this, I think was just kind of a big step. So I do think, that's why I am predicting a sweep. I think this win jumpstarts him and gets him going.
I like where you're thinking, and I hope you're right.
I don't know if you were there, but that Bushy goal on Saturday was the loudest I've ever heard the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center. What's the loudest you've ever heard the rink? I know I talk about this goal all the time. It's one of my favorite goals. But Brocklehurst clapper that makes it 5-1 and the building erupts. That to me was the loudest. Every once in a while, I think it happened maybe on Lash's goal, maybe even earlier that game. That game just kind of stands out to me quite a bit as being kind of a big moment in terms of atmosphere. But I think that Lash, on a play that shot it wide, and Lash was able to kind of tuck it in. I think even the horn did a key change where it reached like a slightly higher note, and I remember that kind of sticking out to my head. That was loud too. So, but I still think that Brocklehurst goal, the building erupted at that point. Surprisingly, another one is Hanowski's 0.1 goal against Alaska Anchorage of all teams. I remember that being an eruption. That was back also when it was 5,500 was like the norm. You always got that much to hockey games, and now the competition for dollars is stretched so thin. But that's those are kind of stick out to me of loud goals. Unfortunately, I was not there, so I couldn't hear it firsthand. But I mean, judging by everything, it was a great attendance. So it's not surprising.
Yeah, for my memory, it's a tough question, but I just go back to Gopher games.
Yeah,
as being sort of the best atmosphere crowd wise. I remember the LeBlanc breakaway goal in his Hobie year.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that was a big moment. Cause the narrative of his season was that was almost the capstone of that. And I felt like the crowd sort of was aware of this is a special season. And again, because it's against the Gophers, it's just everything's sort of amplified because of that. More so even than North Dakota games, which are very well attended too, but too much green in the building to make the memories stand out as much. So yeah, I wish I had more time to think about this, but just off the top of my head, I'll shout out that LeBlanc goal against the Gophers.
Oh, it's a good one too. Eric, what does the successful season look now that we're in the postseason from here? We teased this a little bit earlier. For him, it's at least one win. I want to say the Frozen Four, but that seems like a pipe dream given the loss and injuries we have on the blue line. Yeah, I think a successful season, one win in the NCAA tournament. I mean that. I don't know. The fact that I said that we wouldn't make the tournament and we are going to, I have to look at it through that lens. This is a successful season to me because I looked at this as a little bit more of a rebuild, maybe a reload.
But then you look at it through the lens of
where we were
and horn injury.
Yeah,
you're thinking on January 15th or whatever it was to say that not making a Frozen Four would that maybe kind of be a disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, again, I always hesitate defining seasons based on the NCAA tournament, which I know sounds backward, but
you've always been on that camp of you can't judge a game by a one or a season by a one game.
I wish it was as easy as that, but by that logic, the 2021 Huskies was the best Huskies team ever because they made it the furthest in the tournament.
Yeah.
They made it to the national title game, and they're like the 7th best Huskies team. It's like Scorsese winning Best Director for The Departed. It's like his 7th best movie. And so,
Scent of a Woman.
he had no hand in that. But yeah, so yeah, getting to a regional final would be nice. Obviously, getting to a Frozen Four would be great. But
You really think that's his 7th best? Maybe not 7th, but like, are you not a fan of The Departed, or do you just think
It's
there's
fine.
a lot better Scorsese?
there's a lot better Scorsese, I think. Raging Bull's better. The King of Comedy might be my favorite of his. Comedy with De Niro as a psycho, like stalker type, celebrity stalker. He kidnaps Jerry Lewis. Great movie if you've never seen it. Goodfellas, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Goodfellas really stands out to me. But there's actually a lot that I haven't seen of him. I haven't seen Taxi Driver. I haven't seen him.
Great.
I haven't seen Wolf of Wall Street.
Not a huge fan of that. It's all right, but
I have seen Shutter Island.
it's decent.
I've always wanted to see Gangs of New York,
It's solid.
but every time I look at the runtime of it, I'm like, no. I just
Get that.
pick something else. So I just feel like that's a lot to invest in a movie, but
No, I get that. But anyway,
this has been your Boomer Film Corner here.
There's something in that season preview podcast. At one point, you're like, "Oh, we're not going to go super long because we want to keep these things short." And I started laughing, like, because we were trying to like keep it to like an hour ish.
Oh.
We've been settling into this 2-hour plus for the whole season, and I realize so few people are listening to this, but
It's actually
if you
kind of
are,
interesting.
We love you.
It's actually kind of interesting. I've gotten more positive feedback about the 2-hour plus podcast than I have
Really?
the negative. Yeah.
Great.
A lot of people like the longer
So
format.
what?
Yeah.
Dan Jacobson likes it?
Yes.
That's the feedback? That's the feedback?
Jason Bryant likes
Yeah,
it.
Nice.
And then I think it was I think it was Eric that likes it as well. I don't know.
Great.
There's a couple.
All right.
But
Well,
the fact that there's been more people saying yes than no.
all right, just to test that,
Oh God, don't put
Hypothesis.
this to an actual test. It's not going to hold up.
you gotta tweet at Weldie, or you can email me, huskieshockeypodcast@gmail.com. What's your favorite Scorsese movie?
There we go. What is your favorite Scorsese movie?
Are you Scorsese or Scorsese?
I call them eyebrows.
Tomato.
Like Eugene Levy could play him in a biopic. Like it's just
Let's get that done.
just spitting
You should
image,
get on that.
right?
You should get on
Exactly. So, which I don't know why I said Eugene Levy and I thought of Christopher Guest, and that's just
That's natural.
yeah, exactly. So, how Jeff, Amon, how serious are the injuries to Trey Ball and Peart? Was last week in just extra rest, the comeback for a run. They're going to be needed big time here coming up. We spoke a little bit about it earlier, but I just kind of wanted to circle back on my thoughts on it, just to kind of reemphasize again. I don't expect them to play Friday, and I still think we're going to win. So I guess now I'm kind of second guessing myself, but I mean it's not like Peart and Trey Ball. I don't know. I think people put them on a higher pedestal from how they played lately than they should be on, because I think they've both been very mediocre.
Yeah, we've criticized, I think rightly, but I do think this last weekend exposed the fact that we can complain, we can quibble, but it's a huge loss. I will say, as far as Wiley goes, I might prefer him to Trey Ball on the power play.
Yes. Yeah.
I would prefer Trey Ball from a purely defensive standpoint to Wiley at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But from the power play, cycling around, quarterbacking at the top of the point, I think I prefer Wiley to Trey Ball. So maybe this opportunity, as you said, kind of is a good long-term move because it'll give Wiley some kind of playoff tested experience. So
yep.
I'm in favor of that aspect
yeah,
of it.
Exactly. So, well, that about does it. We wanted to keep it short, so here we are at the 2:13 or so mark. Whenever this gets to the edit bay, wherever we end up. So, tweet me your favorite Scorsese, Eugene Levy lookalike.
Eyebrows.
Eyebrows movie at More Clappers, MOAR, More Clappers. And Andrew, you could reach him at...
That's Huskies Hockey Podcast at gmail.com. Send me an email. Tell me what your favorite Eyebrows movie is.
Yep, there you go. So, and until next time, go Huskies. Woo!